He grew up in East Baltimore delivering newspapers on foot. He built his first business at 10 years old. A paper route he grew from 10 customers to over 100, then sold for a profit. At 12, he became the only person in the 148-year history of Harvard Law School to be admitted before he even applied. He executed the largest overseas leveraged buyout in American history, nearly $1 billion, and in doing so became the first black man to build a billion-dollar company. Not the first black man to get close. The first. Period. His name was Reginald Francis Lewis, and by the time Forbes listed him among the 400 richest Americans in 1993, his net worth was estimated at $400 million, a figure that, in today's dollars, would place him firmly in billionaire territory. But here is what most people still don't understand about the Lewis family. Reginald died at 50, and the dynasty did not die with him. The story of how a boy from the streets of East Baltimore built the most powerful black financial family Maryland has ever produced, and how that family kept the empire alive, extended the legacy, and reshaped what was possible for every black entrepreneur who came after them, is one of the most extraordinary wealth stories in American history, and almost nobody knows it. Act 1. East Baltimore, where empires begin in unlikely places. Reginald Francis Lewis was born on December 7, 1942, in East Baltimore. He came from humble beginnings in a tight-knit, middle-class neighborhood. His drive, discipline, and brilliance were evident from a young age. His mother and grandparents shaped him early and shaped him hard. His grandmother taught him the importance of saving, even cutting and peeling strips from the bottom of a tin can and nailing it to the floor of a closet to protect his savings. That image is worth sitting with for a moment. A tin can nailed to a closet floor. That was the first bank account of America's first black billionaire. By the age of 10, Lewis had set up his own delivery service to distribute the Afro-American newspaper. By the age of 12, he was able to sell his paper route after growing it to over 100 customers. He was not yet a teenager, and he had already demonstrated the two instincts that would define his entire career: identify an underserved market, build it methodically, then monetize the exit. Later, Lewis would attend Dunbar High School in West Baltimore, where he would excel in football, basketball, and baseball. He was elected vice president of the student body. He worked nights and weekends at a local country club to pay for his own clothes and eventually his own car. He was not waiting for opportunity. He was constructing it, piece by piece, with whatever materials the city gave him. After completing law school, Lewis established his own practice, Wall Street's first black-owned law firm. The sheer audacity of that sentence deserves a pause. A black man from East Baltimore in the late 1960s walked into the most rarefied financial corridor in the world and hung his name on the door, not as an employee, as the owner. Act 2. The legal mind that became a financial weapon. What separated Reginald Lewis from the generation of black professionals who came before him was not simply ambition. Plenty of people have ambition. What separated Lewis was his willingness to treat ambition as architecture, something to be designed, built in stages, and stress-tested against reality. He spent 15 years as a corporate attorney, not coasting, but learning. Learning how deals were structured, learning how capital moved, learning how leverage worked, learning the machinery of American wealth from the inside at a level of technical detail that most people never access. After 15 years as a corporate lawyer, Lewis moved to the other side of the table by creating TLC Group, SP, a private equity firm, in 1983. His first major deal was the purchase of the McCall Pattern Company, a home sewing pattern business, for $22.5 million. On paper, McCall was a declining business in a declining market. Fewer Americans were sewing at home, and the company looked like exactly the kind of bet a rational investor would avoid. Lewis saw something different. He saw a company with real market share, real cash flow, and real upside if managed correctly. He bought it, he restructured it, he turned it around. He led the company to two of its most profitable years in its 113-year history. Then, 4 years later, he sold it at a return of 90-1, generating a windfall for investors that announced to Wall Street, clearly and permanently, that Reginald Lewis was not a curiosity or an experiment. He was a force. Act 3. The billion-dollar deal that made history. In October 1987, Reginald Lewis did something that had never been done before by any American, black or white, at that scale in international markets. He purchased the international division of Beatrice Foods, with holdings in 31 countries, which became known as TLC, Beatrice International. At $985 million, the deal was the largest leveraged buyout at the time of overseas assets by an American company. Read that again. Not the largest by a black businessman, the largest by any American company. Overseas. Ever. At that point in history, the company encompassed 64 companies in 31 countries and grew into a multinational powerhouse. Snack foods, beverages, grocery operations, a global distribution network that stretched from Europe across multiple continents, generating revenue that most nations would consider a respectable GDP contribution. When TLC Beatrice reported revenue of $1.8 billion in 1987, it became the first black-owned company to have more than $1 billion in annual sales. At its peak in 1996, TLC Beatrice International Holdings Inc. had sales of $2.2 billion and was number 512 on Fortune magazine's list of the 1,000 largest companies. Lewis ran the company from offices in New York and Paris simultaneously. He was moving between continents, managing 64 companies across 31 countries, restructuring debt, repositioning assets, and building value at a speed and sophistication that his Wall Street peers, most of them born into networks Lewis had to fight his way into, found startling. He was not supposed to be in that room. He built the room. Act 4. The philanthropy, power that plants seeds. Here is something that the business press often separates from the wealth story, but that Reginald Lewis understood were the same story. What you build for others is an extension of what you build for yourself. In 1987, Lewis established the Reginald F. Lewis Foundation, which funded grants of approximately $10 million to various non-profit programs and organizations while he was alive. His first major grant was an unsolicited $1 million to Howard University in 1988. Unsolicited. Nobody asked. He simply decided that Howard University, a historically black institution that had trained generations of black professionals who could not access white universities, deserved $1 million from the first black man to build a billion-dollar company. And he wrote the check. In 1992, Lewis donated $3 million to Harvard Law School, the largest grant at the time in the school's history. The school renamed its International Law Center the Reginald F. Lewis International Law Center. It was the first major facility at Harvard named in honor of an African American. A boy who grew up with a tin can bank in a closet in East Baltimore put his name on a building at Harvard Law School. Not as a graduate, as a benefactor at a scale the institution had never seen before. Act 5. Loida Lewis, the woman who held the empire together. On January 19, 1993, Lewis died at age 50 from brain cancer. He left behind a billion-dollar empire, a philanthropic foundation, 2 daughters, and a wife named Loida Nicholas Lewis, a Filipino-American attorney who had stood beside him through every phase of the empire's construction, and who, in the immediate aftermath of his death, faced a choice that would define the family's legacy for decades. She could liquidate. She could step back. She could let professional managers absorb the company and allow the Lewis name to fade into the footnotes of business history. She chose differently. Lloyda Lewis took over the company a year after his death and ran it before selling it in 1999. She managed a multinational conglomerate spanning dozens of companies across multiple continents in an era when a woman running an operation of that scale was already extraordinary, and an Asian American woman running the largest Black-owned company in America was something the business world had no framework to process. She held it together. She managed the debt structure her husband had engineered. She made the operational decisions. She navigated the politics of an enormous enterprise in grief, under scrutiny, without a playbook. And when the time came to sell, she executed the transaction with the same precision Reginald had brought to every deal he ever closed. The Lewis family did not just survive the patriarch's death. They demonstrated that the empire was never solely about one man. It was about a system, and the woman who understood it as deeply as the man who built it. Act 6. The Daughters and the Dynasty's Next Chapter. Real dynasties are not built in one generation. They are launched in one generation and extended in the next. The Lewis daughters, Christina and Leslie, have continued to support educational programs and organizations dedicated to equipping underprivileged students with resources to succeed. In 2013, Christina, a former journalist for the Wall Street Journal, launched All-Star Code in honor of her father's legacy. It is the first nonprofit that focuses on helping young men of color navigate the tech industry by providing mentorship, industry exposure, and the kind of access that Reginald Lewis had to build for himself from nothing, so that the next generation would not have to. The autobiography Reginald left behind, Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun?, became a foundational text for Black entrepreneurship, read by generations of young men and women who never met him, but were shaped by his story. Christina, Leslie, and Lloyda have come on board as executive producers of a film adaptation, ensuring that his story reaches the screens of a generation that consumes history through moving images. They are not merely preserving a legacy. They are actively amplifying it, converting their father's financial achievement into cultural infrastructure that will influence Black economic thought for decades to come. Act 7. What Maryland Gave the World and What the World Still Owes Maryland. In 2005, the Reginald F. Lewis Museum of Maryland African American History and Culture opened in Baltimore with the support of a $5 million grant from his foundation. It is the East Coast's largest African American museum, occupying an 82,000 square foot facility. A boy who delivered newspapers on the streets of East Baltimore now has a museum standing on those same streets. Not a plaque, not a street name, but a full institution dedicated to preserving and celebrating Black history in the state where he was born, into a world that had no expectation of him building anything beyond what was immediately in front of him. As one figure noted, people who've never met him and have no direct connection to him or any of his businesses have said they would not have gone into business or finance or banking if they had not heard his story. That is the most precise definition of power that exists, not the ability to make money, the ability to make other people believe they can make money, to shift what an entire community considers possible simply by having existed and succeeded inside it. The real lesson: the Lewis family is powerful not because of the billion-dollar valuation, not because of the Harvard building, not because of the Forbes list, or the Fortune ranking, or the leveraged buyout that rewrote the record books. They are powerful because Reginald Lewis, a boy with a tin can savings account and a newspaper route in East Baltimore, looked at the most exclusive financial rooms in America and asked the question that became his autobiography's title: Why should white guys have all the fun? And then he walked in, closed the deal, built the empire, named the building, funded the schools, and left behind a wife and 2 daughters who understood that the work was never finished, only transferred. From East Baltimore to Wall Street, from Wall Street to Paris, from Paris to a museum on Pratt Street that carries his name and his city's history under the same roof. Maryland's richest black family did not break the rules of wealth. They rewrote them and left the new rules behind for everyone who came next.